Welcome back to another space news video with me. SpaceX are really upping the pace of things at Starbase as all systems move ahead to Flight Test 8, with both SuperHeavy and Starship completing static fire tests, and Falcon 9 fleet leader B-1067 broke its own record after making a world-first 26th landing after orbital launch. China debuted a brand new rocket, NASA prepared its CADRE rovers for their voyage to the moon, and much more. Enjoy. It's all systems go for Starship Flight Test 8 preparation. Last week, I covered the static fire test of SuperHeavy Booster 15, which will carry Ship 34 on what will hopefully be the first successful test flight of Starship Block 2. Very soon after the test was done, the booster was rolled back to the Megabay for final fit-outs, including hot ring installation. Meanwhile, Ship 34 was lifted onto the mobile Starship static fire pad, and it was transported to Massey's for its static fire test campaign. Before Ship 34 made its journey to Massey's though, Starship Gazer snapped this photo of workers posing at its base. Nothing too notable about this, but it's a great example of just how massive this rocket is. It's often hard to get a sense of scale with rockets, considering they're never really near to anything to give a good size comparison. My favourite way to show off the size of Starship is the Dublin Spire. This is actually very slightly shorter than the SuperHeavy and Starship Block 2 stack. Another picture snapped by Starship Gazer was this one, earlier today in fact. It depicts the Starship Flight 8 Starlink simulator satellites, which will be loaded into Ship 34 and deployed in space during the flight. This was the case for Ship 33 as well. It was loaded with dummy payload satellites, but of course, that vehicle didn't survive long enough into the flight to do this. It exploded due to a suspected methane and oxygen leak in the cavity above the ship engine firewall that eventually built up enough pressure to exceed the ship's vent capacity and causing an explosion. Ship 34 has had a number of upgrades made to ensure that it doesn't meet a similar fate. Elon has stated that SpaceX were planning on upgrading the fire suppression systems on ships that will follow from Ship 33, as well as increase the vent areas. But planning and installing upgrades is one thing. What will actually happen during a live engine light and flight can be something else entirely, which is something SpaceX know, as they put Ship 34 through one of the most grueling ground tests of any other Starship vehicle to date last week. The longest ever static fire burn of a ship, which lasted 58 seconds on the 11th of February. The reason for conducting such an extended burn was, in SpaceX's words, in order to test new hardware and cycle the vehicle's 6 Raptor engines through multiple thrust levels to recreate different conditions seen within the propulsion system during flight, with the hope that the test would produce data that will help inform upgrades to the ship's hardware and flight profile ahead of Flight Test 8, as well as all future Starship vehicles. It's also reassuring to see that the ship can withstand extended engine firing with no apparent issues, as I'm sure a big part of this test was to make sure that the Block 2 Starship design isn't inherently prone to exploding during engine burn. I saw a few concerned commenters on Twitter mentioning the thud sound at the end of the test. I don't think this is something to worry about though. McGregor watchers tend to call this the Raptor bonk. It's just the engines shutting down. Some people have said that they feel that the exhaust looks engine-rich at the end. Now, here's SN8's historic landing attempt. That green flash at the end is basically this. It's a sign the engine is burning itself. Some people feel that this was the case during the Ship 34 static fire last week, right at the end. I'm going to loop the footage here. Me, personally, I'm not quite sure if I see it, but what do you see? Let me know in the comments below. Had Flight 7 been successful, then Flight 8 could well have been the first ever flight to feature a catch attempt of not just the booster, but of the ship as well. Sadly, due to the failure of Ship 33, Flight 8 will almost certainly just be a repeat of Flight 7's plan. But maybe Flight 10, or, Flight X, Roman numerals, right, will. The nose cone and payload section of Ship 36 was spotted rolling out of Star Factory, and look! Nubs! These are the catch points that the ship rests on when making contact with the chopsticks, similar to the ones on the booster. These might not be structural though. Ship 33 had these dummy nubs just to test the heating and resilience of them during re-entry. Whether or not these are the real deal remains to be seen. I love Evan Caron's animation of how a potential Block 2 Starship catch might look. He made the interesting choice to have Tower 1 catch the booster and Tower 2 catch the ship. At the moment, this isn't possible. While Pad B's tower has had its chopsticks installed, they're non-functional for now. But that's not going to be the case for much longer. Last week saw the installation of one of the massive hydraulic actuators that allows the sticks to open and close. NASASpaceFlight's Jack Beyer filmed a little drive down to Starbase last week. The road layout might not look like this for much longer though, and that's a good thing. Large trucks, and in fact a lot of vehicles to be honest, struggle to turn around at the end of the road and at the entrance to the launch site. And so, to remedy this, SpaceX wants to build a roundabout at the end of Highway 4. Here's the proposed schematics. Now I must immediately apologise to any Americans watching. I am very sorry if seeing a roundabout induced any panic or confusion. Here's a nice video of some monster trucks to help you forget about it. Whew, okay. If we're safe to move on, then let's move on. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. I love you guys. Anyway, last Monday, NASA shared these cool video clips. They packed up 3 small lunar rovers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory to begin their journey to the moon. They're about the size of a suitcase and will work alongside a base station and camera system as part of NASA's CADRE project, which tests whether robots can work together to gather data without direct instructions from Earth. These videos are actually tests of the CADRE software in January last year, as well as a rover being flipped over, secured to a metal plate for transport, and sealed in a protective enclosure before being packed for shipping in January this year. The hardware was sent from JPL to Intuitive Machines in Houston, where it will be attached to the Nova C lander. This lander is part of Intuitive Machines' 3rd lunar mission, scheduled for launch in early 2026, which will deliver CADRE and other NASA equipment to the moon's Reiner Gamma region. There were 4 orbital launches over the week. 3 of these were SpaceX Falcon 9 Starlink missions, launching on Monday, Tuesday and Saturday. In total, growing the Starlink network by another 64 satellites, including 26 with direct-to-cell capabilities. And SpaceX shared this incredible view of the deployment of Saturday's Starlink satellites, of which 13 were direct-to-cell capable. This wasn't the coolest thing about the mission though. That was, without a doubt, the first stage booster's landing. This was the 25 times flown before booster 1067, which, with the successful completion of this mission, broke its own record and is now the first orbital class booster to launch and land 26 times. I'm super curious what the upper limit is. How long do you think she'll be able to keep flying? Write that wild speculation down below. China conducted the maiden flight of the Long March 8A rocket on Tuesday. Lifting off from the Woonchang Launch Complex 22 site, it carried 9 Hulian Wangdigui communication satellites, which comprised the second batch of the 13,000 satellite Guowang satellite mega constellation, which is essentially China's answer to SpaceX's Starlink. Lowne Aerospace didn't go to space last week. I really did try, guys, but sadly, I just couldn't get the video done in time. I was away at the weekend for Valentine's Day, and I was on a steam train at the time I usually post. Here's my view from that, I guess. Don't worry though, I did pay for my lack of content by being splashed by a big wave while walking along the seafront. So, yeah. So next we're gonna walk along the path, right? Up! I've got a bit wet! Oh no! I've got so wet! Oh no! Oh my God. There will 100% be a KSP video this week though, and it's one that I think you're really going to love. It's very different from my normal content, and not in a bad way, I hope. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it, and if you want to help support the channel further, then I do have a Patreon and a YouTube channel membership scheme, which you can join at the links below, just like the amazing folk on the right did. But that is it for today's episode of Space This Week. I do hope you enjoyed the show, and yeah, make sure you like, subscribe, all that good shebang, and that's the end of the video. Bye!